Looks like we're live. Okay, hopefully this means we're live. Any of you guys who are there who can hear me or whatever, just say hello, I can hear you, or whatever. That would be nice. I'm never quite sure. I've got my little microphone. So if that's working, just, let me know. I've started a little bit early because I wanted to make sure that I could actually get this thing working. This is literally the first time I have done a YouTube live, so I actually don't know if anything I'm doing is working. So, yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Hello to you guys who are already there. I can see there's like 9 people here, so that's good. And I can see comments from 2, and one of them says that they can hear me. So that's yay, good enough. By the way, I hope you appreciate my little group. I have friends who know me very, very well. So, yeah. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's raining at the moment. It's one of those really beautiful, blustery days. So lots of rain outside, and my parents made a fire. So I have my door open until they get back home and start exciting the dogs. So, someone's saying they won't be able to watch until later, but they have a question. What was my journey into indie publishing? Well, that's probably a good place to start anyway, because I have quite a lot of questions to answer from earlier, and quite a few of those were about my journey into indie publishing. So I might as well start there while everyone comes in. So indie publishing, as you guys possibly know, there's in general 2 different ways that you can publish. You can go either traditional, which is the route where you try to find an agent. Your agent then tries to find a publisher who A, would like to publish your book, and B, is suitable for you, but it usually just ends up being anyone who agrees to publish it and will give you a suitable advance and that sort of thing. I did originally start out wanting to be traditionally published. In Australia, when I first started, there used to be about 3 bigger publishers. One of those was Allen and Unwin. There are others, or there were others. I actually don't know if there are anymore. Things have changed significantly since I first started. And anyway, I ended up sending out to a lot of agents, and I got some interest, but not too much. But I also noticed that you could send directly to the publishers. So I did that for a while. And the one thing that really stood out to me was the biggest request I got was a full manuscript request for Wolfskin from Allen and Unwin, and they were at the time the biggest publishing house in Australia. So I was very pleased with that. And at that stage, it was only the second draft of Wolfskin, so it was still actually not a very good book, in my opinion. So I sent it to them, and they sent back very quickly, actually, and asked for the full. And I sent that off. And they did reply to that after quite some time and said, we love the book, we love the world, we love the characters. The forest itself, we think, is an amazing character. We love it. But we have no idea how we would ever market it. And they passed on it based on that fact. So for a start, it was a nice letter to receive, apart from the fact that they were rejecting me or rejecting my book. It was a good letter to receive because it made it really, really clear to me that what I was writing was, by at least TradPub standards, technically good, and they were pleased with that. But because they didn't know how they could market it, then they didn't have any way forward, which meant that since I was becoming aware of the indie world by then, where you could publish what you wanted to publish and still get an audience, that seemed like a really viable option. And as I did my research into indie publishing, it became very, very obvious that if I wanted to be paid a decent amount for my work, indie was the way to go. And I'm not in this for the money, but the money means that I can do this for a job. So obviously, if I can get better paid for the same work, I'm going to choose to get better paid for the same work. So I started researching more and more. I joined a few author boards, especially for indie authors, because I found that TradPub authors, not all of them, and I know a couple of really, really nice ones now, but back in the day, especially the aspiring traditionally published authors, they were very snobby. If you weren't querying agents with half your time and suffering in silence the rest of the time, you just weren't an artist. So it was, really hard to make friendships there. So I did end up just going on indie boards. And through that, I was able to find out that not only could I do pretty much all the work myself and publish with very little outlay, but I could also receive a better return, and I could publish the things that I wanted to publish without compromising by making something more traditional, I guess. It gave me the space to still stick with what I wanted to do creatively and get paid better for it. So in a sort of a nutshell, that was my journey into indie publishing. It was the better choice for me. And the more I see of traditional publishing versus indie publishing, the happier I am that I made that decision. I have a couple of friends who are in traditional publishing at the moment, and I don't think they're being treated very well at all. I'm not impressed what's being done for them. They are amazing writers. They write amazing stuff. And yeah, I just don't think that they're being treated anything like well enough, or their books being given the kind of leg up they deserve, I guess. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's my journey into indie publishing. There are a few other questions to do with that, so I'll get on to those soon as well. I asked on Instagram if you guys had any questions, and there's actually a really good mix of people asking about my books and a good mix of people asking about processes and writing itself. So that makes me really happy. You don't have to keep your questions to just being about this book series or that book series or even my books. You can ask about, the publishing journey and that, because I know quite a lot of you are either aspiring writers or you are actually writers. I know some of you guys are indie published as well. There's a couple of you guys already have books out, which is very, very impressive. I'll do some shout out to those next time when I can actually take the time to gather all the titles, so I know so that I know I'm saying the books correctly. Maria says that it's the same with her trade pub friends. They're not being treated great at all. Yeah, and also yes, and as she says, the money you get for all those years of work, it's not good. It's really not good. There are some people who get paid very well, but those are mostly the outliers. I feel like you have a better chance of just making a decent living being an indie published author than you do being a trad pub author. You may not make it huge, but I know I've been my revenue has been increasing significantly each year, and I'm very comfortably making a living at the moment. So yeah, I feel like if you want to make a living, mid-list authors in indie circles do better, in my experience and from what I've seen, than trad pub mid-list authors do. So that's definitely something to consider. So on Instagram, Danny asked, is there anywhere for fans to discuss my books, theories, post fan art, etc.? Yes, there are a couple of spaces that you can do that. So I actually have two spaces on Facebook. There's my regular page, my author page, which is WR Gingell. You just put the w.r.gingell and you'll find me there. There's also the Facebook group, which is Denizens of the Weird Worlds of WR Gingell. There's usually some sort of discussion going on there. If there's not a discussion, there's memes being posted. So there's always something there. If you're a Discord person rather than a Facebook person, I have a Discord server as well. I actually don't know how you get to that in general terms. I think it's just WR Gingell or something like that. But I post links to it sometimes. I'll try to keep posting those on Facebook and places like that. And keep up with it that way. If you're a Discord person, you might know how to find it anyway. I hope, maybe. Otherwise, I'll keep posting on Facebook at regular intervals so that you guys can find those spaces. I love looking at your fan art. Honestly, you guys are really talented. I can't draw, or at least I can draw from reference pictures and that sort of thing. Even then, it's not wonderful. But the things some of you guys come out with, and the Discord, yeah, the Discord group has some really fun fan art in it, as well as the Denizens group. So they're worth checking out if you like to see fan art, especially if you want to discuss. If you want to discuss theories and that sort of thing. Once the next Between book comes out, there'll be a spoiler thread open in the Denizens group, and probably on the Discord server and the Facebook page as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. Goose is asking, do I have an idea when the next City Between book will be released? Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm glad that you love it. It won't be too long. The pre-order for Between Decisions, book number 8, is already up. I was supposed to finish that book this week, but some things got in the way. My computer died. Like, I normally talk to you guys on this computer. It's mostly dead, mostly a brick. It's not quite dead yet, but it's on its way out. If I don't keep it plugged in, it tends to just, cark it. So yeah, a few things interfered. So I have a new timeline for finishing, which will probably be Monday or Tuesday next week. And then I'll do a quick edit, send it off to beta readers on about the 17th. And then I will enjoy a week off or so. But that means that the actual publication date is already set. It's May 16th. So yeah, book 8 will come out May 16th. So I think it'll be either August or September for the 9th book. But all of the last books, book 8, 9, and 10, they'll all be published by the end of this year. That's my big goal for the year. I wanted to get a couple of other things done as well, but it might just be those 3 plus a novella that gets done. So I've been trying to get Susan's book done and trying to get Cinderella Must Die finished. I think it'll be finished this year, but it might not publish until next year for Cinderella Must Die. But yeah, City Between, yes, got that date, May 16th. That'll be coming out then. Oh no, some people's alerts didn't come through on time. Oh no. And here was I thinking that YouTube would be better at doing that sort of thing. But at least we're only 10 minutes in. So there's still like another 50 minutes. I will probably chunter on for, yeah, I usually do about an hour, and there's enough questions to keep me going. So that'll be fine. Oh, that's right by Goose's birthday. Nice. That works out really well. My birthday's next week. Yeah, I'm getting old. Guys, I'm getting old. That's why you can see all the white hairs sitting up here, especially this side. I don't know why. Maybe I'm turning into Morticia. I'll be quite happy with that if I do. I wouldn't mind like a white streak, and it's certainly coming out as quickly as it can. Desiree, I think, is saying thanks for working with the audiobook people. Yeah, that actually took longer than I expected, and that is just because, not necessarily because I'm lazy, but because I get overwhelmed with stuff, and then I'm like, I'm putting this on my list to do, and then it's like several months later. But I did finally get it done. Actually, I got it done with Zira's help. She's the lady who does the audiobook. She's great. Her voice is fantastic. She does Pet's voice really well. She helped me to get an answer out of Tantor about, are you guys actually going to complete the series, or are you not going to complete the series? And yeah, thanks to her help, we managed to get it sorted out. She was very eager to keep going on them. She says she enjoys them, which is very happy for me. So yeah. B Foreman saying, oh, hey, I resemble that remark. Actually, I forgot I don't have to read these out because you guys can see them. I don't know why I'm still reading them out. I got used to it on Facebook. So there was another question from Danny on Instagram about, besides the spoiler in the Between spin-off series, can I tell you guys anything about the main characters? I can tell you that, well, this isn't the main characters, but it's probably going to be set in Korea. I have plans, very tentative plans, but for next year, hopefully to go back and live there for a while, perhaps. it's just something I'm thinking through at the moment, but I'm thinking if I can, I'll probably try and live there for 3 or 6 months. And for the purposes of well, just for the purposes of I enjoy being there, but also because I would like to set this series there. It's going to be shorter, about 5 books instead of 10 books. I won't tell you one of the main characters because that would be somewhat spoilery. But one of the main characters will be a Gumiho. And for those of you who don't know, the Gumiho is the nine-tailed fox of Korean legends. I think China also has something very similar, who has to, or who doesn't have to, but who tends to eat hearts, particularly of males, and also who, if they want to become human, has to consume a certain amount of hearts. I forget how many it is. I haven't finished my research yet. I've done a little bit of research. And also, if you want to find out a little bit about what they consider to be, what the Koreans would consider to be more of a traditional gumiho, Tale of the Nine-Tailed is out on Netflix at the moment. I haven't finished watching it. I've only just started it, but it's been a lot of fun so far. You'll get a little bit of an idea. But that's a male gumiho, and I don't see them a lot. It's usually female that I actually see. I'm not saying that's all there is, but that's usually what I see. There's also an earlier K-drama called My Girlfriend is a Gumiho, and I haven't finished watching that either because I have a bad habit of starting a K-drama and leaving it at a certain point for another year or so before I come back and finish it, unless it's very, very good. So yeah, one of the main characters, there will be 2 main characters that I'm thinking I'll do from their point of view, and one of those will be a Gumiho. So without spoilers, yeah, that's one of the main characters. Danny also asked, do I feel like I've made it fairly obvious who Pet will end up with romantically, or is it evenly split? I feel like I've made it fairly obvious in my own way, which I guess is not necessarily the easiest for everyone else. I tend to use subtext a lot. I'm also legitimately exploring a lot of different kinds of love in the between books, so I can understand that people are confused about it. I can understand the confusion there because sometimes it can be hard to differentiate between different kinds of love and their outworking unless you already have something in mind, like some framework in mind. And today's framework, like the world around us today, puts a premium on romantic love, and also with the emergence of the LGBT plus movements and that becoming more mainstream, even platonic love between friends can be misinterpreted because we have a framework now of that romantic love is a thing to be expected between 2 women or 2 men. And so it can be harder for people to realize that platonic love can exist because those markers are now taken as romantic markers instead of platonic love markers. And that goes for relationships between males and females as well. Traditionally, it's harder to tell, I think, because for so long that has been the established norm. So those markers were always a little bit confusing. But in today's world, it's even harder, I think. So that premium on romantic love rather than platonic gives you a framework whereby it is harder to tell if something is just platonic love or if it is romantic love. So I can see why it would be a little bit hard to tell. But for me, from what I've done, it feels like I've made it fairly obvious who she'll end up with. Not necessarily from the actions of the characters toward Pet, but her actions toward them and her inner dialogue, inner life. So there is that, yeah, I think I made it fairly clear. But again, what I think is clear and what someone else thinks is clear is going to be quite different depending on their worldview and the context in which they grew up. So who knows? Maybe you guys should be telling me instead of me telling you. Like Nail Art But Worse on Instagram asks, will we get more One Piece soon? In case you guys don't know, in case you came through The City Between or my science fiction, One Piece is a character who is sometimes a boy and sometimes a dog from the Two Monarchies sequence, particularly the book Spindle, the first of that series. I do actually have plans to have a short story or a novella of him. He needs to meet with another of the characters from that world. I'd also like to see him interact with Annabelle a little bit, so I'm probably going to do something with those characters, and I don't know, just have fun with it. I've also got plans for other short stories and other novellas. I don't know if you guys remember Mr. Pennicott from, well, especially from the end of Blackfoot. He is a Black Velvet member, perhaps a very important one, depending on who you ask. I have plans for him to meet with Aunt Odu, and they have an adventure that I want to set to paper. It's been running around in my brain for literally years. I haven't written it because I got caught up with the City Between series. So once the City Between series is finished at the end of this year, there will be more Two Monarchies content, I guess. So I'll switch back to Two Monarchies for a little while as I'm hopefully finding my feet with the spin-off series, this City Between spin-off series. So we'll definitely get more of that, and One Piece will be part of that extra content there. Rebecca asked a really good question actually on Instagram regarding character progression and / development. Which character in City Between has been the hardest to write? There are two that have been quite difficult for me to write in totally different ways. Atlas has always been very easy for me to write, and Pet also. Both of those have been quite easy to write for me. The hardest ones have been Zero and Gingell. Zero, because you have to communicate so much when he doesn't, and also you need to try and get him to actually change and develop. And guys, he is so stubborn. He does not want to change. He does not want to develop. He wants to stay exactly where he is. So that is hard. With Jin Yong, it is actually, I think Susanna Roundtree said to me that she's been waiting for him to break and have a mental breakdown for the last 7 books now. And I understand that because I've been waiting for that too. And that is something that will have to happen in order for him to progress, something which will soon happen, I believe. Jin Yong, again, in a different way, has been difficult because he is such an imperfect and even sometimes quite horrible character. But he's capable of growth, but his growth is in a completely different way for a lot of people. So he can just be really frustrating with his childishness while at the same time trying to be taken seriously. So he is, a little bit difficult in that way. But I think those two are the most difficult characters for me to write at the moment. But particularly Zero, but Jin Yong is a very close second. Hello, Jacob. Yes, looking forward to the new Between books being released in the audio recordings. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think that Between Homes is out now. It's either out now or it will be in the next week or so. So I think there will be an update on the release date of the next one soon. And I'll let you guys know about that as soon as I can, actually. I'll have a little bit of a search around and see what's up on Tantor's website. If you don't see it on Audible, go to Tantor. You can buy it directly from them. I don't know if you have to have an account or how it downloads or how that works at all. I honestly don't listen to audiobooks at all. So, yeah, unless it's nonfiction, I do. Adela wants to know if we're going to get to know Pet's real name. Yes. Yes, you will get to know Pet's real name. I don't think that in the I think it'll be hard for the other characters to call her anything other than Pet. I know Jin Yong will be very happy to have a name, but I'm not sure the others will graduate very well to using her real name. In fact, they probably won't want to use it a lot because dangers regarding names. But there's definitely some forward movement with that in book 8, and by book 9 you will know her name. So rejoice, you will get to know her name. I had been tossing up about it as to whether I would or wouldn't let people know her name because there were pros and cons both ways. But yeah, It's happening. It'll happen. Rebecca also wants to know what's the approximate circumference of a 3-year-old duck. I assume you mean round-wise rather than over its head, because that would make very little sense. Also, I have no idea, but as soon as I saw that question, I wanted to know. I'm thinking based on the ducks that I know personally. Yes, I personally know ducks. Like the last one I took a picture of, it would have been about maybe 30 centimeters diameter, I would have thought. But that would only be a guess. I know lots of really big ducks, so some of them are bigger. Thank you for that question. That made me laugh anyway. Swirly Ice Cream on Instagram says, you write such witty and hilarious dialogue. Thank you. That's very nice of you. She asks how. I'm assuming she. I don't know why I assume she for Swirly Ice Cream. That's probably very rude of me. Sorry. And asked, do I have cool conversations with myself? I'm not sure about cool conversations with myself, but okay, so I don't know how many of you guys have seen it. There is a K-drama, like one set in the old days for Korea, where there's this strong silent bodyguard. This dude never says a word. No, sometimes he says a word or maybe two to the princess he's looking after. But they do this thing with him where you see all that, and then for like a brief moment or two every now and then, they give you his inner dialogue, and he never shuts up, and it's just a constant, but he never actually talks. So don't mind me, I just spilled my tea. I got very excited. So he doesn't talk, but inside it's just a constant thing that just never lets up and never shuts up. And I have never felt so seen in my entire life. I've literally never felt so understood. Oh, apart from the time when I saw something on Instagram, like a picture on Instagram that said, that had two people having a conversation where one of them said, I called you on your phone, why didn't you answer? And the other person's like, I don't use my phone for that. And that is, I also felt very seen and understood then. But yeah, that's what it's like in my head, that it never shuts up. There's never any quiet. There's always something talking. And yeah, quite a lot of the time that's characters having conversations. When it's not characters having conversations, it's my brain trying to fit pieces of story together and things like that. So yeah, it never shuts up. There's never any peace. That's exactly how it happens. It just sort of spews out. Yeah. So it kind of, I guess, is natural. Oh, I'm glad you guys like the Athelis dialogue. I'm very fond of Athelis. Oh, you guys asking what the drama's called. I'm sorry, I don't know. It's one of the older ones, and I didn't actually watch the drama itself. I saw maybe an episode or so, or maybe not even that. I saw it somewhere. It might have been while I was in Korea, and there wouldn't have been subtitles. So I saw only a little part of it. And yeah, I honestly don't remember what it was called, but it was one of those random things where I just found something that represented me entirely, and I loved it. Danny wants to know, will we see more of Julia than the scenes that took place in Watermelons in the Moonlight? Yes, probably. I'm planning on her being a little bit, you'll see a little bit of her in book 8 and then a little bit more again in book 9. So she'll be visible. She won't be a huge character, but she will be visible. A bit like the others, I guess. Like they're side characters, and they've got some intersection with the main storyline, but they're not main characters. Danny also wanted to know, did Pet's nightmare save her from her Fae captors when she went out of state, or at least purposely make it so she got away? So I can answer the first part of that without spoilers, but I think the second part you're going to have to use your imagination and or wait. Her nightmare did, in some sense, save her when she was out of state, because if the nightmare hadn't killed those people, then she would have been in a lot of trouble. So technically speaking, yes, the nightmare saved her from the Fae captors when she was out of state. What are my favourite scenes to write, and who are my favourite characters to have interact? That's actually really hard to answer. I do enjoy writing the banter scenes. They're a lot of fun. And people like Pet and Jin Yong, Pet and Athelis, Annabelle and Isabella Blackfoot. Luck was so much fun to write, honestly. So I would hate to live with him. I would hate to have to interact with him in real life, but my goodness, he is fun to write, especially when you get him, who is deliberately unhelpful, deliberately obfuscating everything just because either he thinks you should understand it or he doesn't want to take the time to explain. And then you have him interact with One Piece, whose brain doesn't go in straight lines and just moves around in like this giant swirl, and something just burps out occasionally. Watching those two interact is so much fun because they occasionally intersect and can understand each other, and the rest of the time they're just completely bemused by each other, and that makes me so happy. Legitimately so happy, because Luck is such an annoying character that you need to take him down a peg or two in certain ways to make him actually palatable, I guess. So yeah, those scenes are fun for me to write. And him and Annabelle, who is so completely unimpressed by him and actually quite dislikes him, those ones were fun to write as well. So yeah, things like that, and banter scenes are always fun. Those just flow naturally. I have a lot of fun with those. Goose Goose is asking, did anything inspire the creation of each of the troika, or were they just something I made up off the top of my head? I had specific inspiration for each, but when I tend to get inspiration for something, I'll take like a tiny part of a character, like a particular way they interacted with someone that really pleased me, or the fact that they wear mismatching socks. Just things like that I'll take, and then the character will start to grow from that. So there was definitely for them, but I can't give away too much of their inspiration without actually spoiling a few things in terms of what kind of characters they are. So I used some archetypes for each of the characters, though I think Athelos is perhaps a little less archetypy than Zero. Zero is very archetypy, and Jin is as well, but he's more of a subverted archetype. So that is, yeah, possibly spoilers if I give away too much about that. But in general, writing is always inspired and informed by something, whether it's something from real life, something from a different kind of media. Nothing exists in a vacuum. You don't just create characters one day with no input. They'll come from something you're going through, or something you've experienced in the past, or something you've seen that made a lot of sense to you, or that you saw you could develop further. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that exists in my writing that was sheerly made up from the top of my head. It was rooted in experience or in inspiration from another form of media. Yes, I agree. The idea of Jin Yong's reaction to someone wearing mismatching socks is fun to contemplate. I'm surprised Pet hasn't tried that already. We already talked about discussing fan art and that sort of thing, and where we can do that. Yes, I got an email from one of you guys about a few different things about author life, and not necessarily the books, which again is, yeah, lots of fun. I enjoy that. It's good to have a good mix of questions, is more to the point. You guys usually come up with some really good questions, so I enjoy that. This person emailed and asked about 6 questions. The first was, did I study creative writing or am I self-taught? I never studied creative writing. I have a bad attitude when people tell me I have to write like this, or this is how you structure something. I get very annoyed and tell them, well, don't tell me what to do, which again is a little bit of a bad attitude, but also it's not the way I learn things. I learn things by doing things, by watching things, by experience, which can mean that I learn incredibly slowly sometimes, but I do learn very thoroughly. So I learned by reading 4 books a day from the time I was about 9 or 10 up until I finished school and I was working and couldn't do that anymore. So my basis was reading, and also I started seriously writing. I started writing when I was about 10 or 12, but started getting really serious about it when I was 14 or 15. And by the time I was 16, 17, I was making sure that I was writing every day and trying to write about 1,000 words a day or something like that. And I did not always achieve that. I very often didn't achieve it. But I tried every day and I wrote every day. And that was a really good basis for me because it meant that I actually finished a book and then could let it sit and write another book. And the thing with writing is you do need to finish stuff so that then you can come back and read it after you've finished another thing and see how bad it is and not make those same mistakes again. So yeah, no study, no bachelor's or whatever it is that you can get in that. In fact, in school, my worst subject was English. I did very, very badly in English. I'm dyslexic. I don't think that actually was, it might have been, it's hard to tell what that's affected because I'm definitely dyslexic. I have a lot of trouble, even with Korean characters. Sometimes I will flip them or back to front, which I do with the English as well. And English, I smoosh words together. And sentence diagramming literally never made sense to me in any way whatsoever. I hated it. So all that stuff I was bad at. I was very, very good at maths and science. So yeah. Actually, no, sorry, English wasn't my worst subject. When we were doing handwriting in school, that was my worst subject. It's the only D I ever got in my life. I was always very high achieving, I guess. I was not very happy if I got low marks, but I actually didn't care about the handwriting one because I think it's stupid to give classes in handwriting, but that's just me. Somebody is saying that they already flipped the kyok in nyuk, and they're not even dyslexic. Yeah, I do that with kyok as well, and also the D sound, which I forget what it is, that gets flipped and missing a character, and yeah, it gets confusing. But I flip upside down as well, like not just back to front, upside down with the Korean syllables because they're blocks made up of different characters. It's easy to do the flip as well. That gets confusing. I read it that way sometimes too, which is, yeah, not so good. Oh, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one, that handwriting was you guys' worst subject in a lot of cases as well. So the second question was, have I worked other jobs while being an author? How many hours per week do I write? How much vacation do I take? So I used to be a full-time, in fact, for a while I had 2 jobs as well as writing. Now I'm full-time. I have been for the last year and a little bit, I think, like year and a half maybe. So I'm all fine now, thanks to you guys buying my books and spreading the word. I'm making a comfortable living. I'm very thankful for that. It's what I've always dreamed of in terms of career. But in the past, I had to work extremely hard. At first, because I did homeschooling for most of my high school years. I was also working a 30-hour per week job at the same time as that. So I was doing 30 hours a week at work from the age of 14 and 9 months, plus schoolwork, plus writing. So I would write in my lunch hours, and that was the only thing I could do. As I said before, I'm old. I didn't have a computer. At home, we had a computer when I got to about 12 or 13, I think it was. It could have been before that, but it wasn't much before that. But laptop, no, I could never have afforded a laptop. I think my first laptop was when I was 18 or so. So it was all handwriting in my lunch break. And during my marriage, things were really bad. And at the end, because at that stage, I can only think of the Korean word for it. Wow. No, what's it? Ex-husband, that's the word. Sorry. I could only think of the Korean word for that. He wasn't working at all. So I was working 2 jobs and writing for a while, and then it was just 1 job and writing, and then things got extremely bad for a while before I was able to get away. But I just used my lunch hour. Mostly I would use my lunch hour, try to write 1,000 words a day. At that stage, I was getting a pretty consistent 1,000 words per day. And honestly, I just decided that I wanted to do this. I wanted to make the best job of it. So I was willing to give up an extra hour of TV or whatever it was at home just to be able to get my writing done. And yeah, it helped. So hours per week nowadays that I write. Oh, and the other jobs I was working were like at Woolworths stocking shelves or being on the checkout, but mostly stocking shelves or doing the home shopping for people. Stuff like that that you can do without having to think about it too much means that your brain can do. Um, sorry, I just saw B Foreman's. I saw B Foreman's comment there. Um, I think there's a point at which someone does become a parasite. Yes, at the time I would have been happy if he had been happy doing the housework and cooking, but that was not the situation I was living in. I think one partner being at home to do the cooking, cleaning, and general house stuff is not a bad thing, especially if you're good at that. I'm not good at that. But when you come home after work and that person is screaming and yelling at you or throwing your stuff or breaking stuff or refusing to let you in the kitchen to cook your own meal and then not cooking meals until 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I tend to go with parasite at that as well. For those who are saying sending hugs and that, oh, thank you, Inessa. Hello, Inessa. Go buy Inessa's book. It's amazing. They're all amazing. Thank you for the hugs. I'm in a much, much better place now. I'm safe. I'm at home. I'm not in any kind of danger anymore. And I am mentally better equipped in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm in a very good place now. A lot of you guys already know my story and what happened with everything there. So I won't go too deeply into it. It was an abusive marriage and I'm safe now and I'm glad to be safe and healthy. So yeah. Carrie's asking if you guys are allowed to ask how old I am. You're allowed to ask. I'm going to be 34 this birthday. Yeah, 34. It takes me a while to remember my age sometimes. I don't remember other people's ages either. But yeah, 34 this year. In Korean age, I'm going to be 36, which seems very unfair to me. But anyway. Yeah, Maria. There's nothing wrong with being a housewife, especially if you're a good housewife. I would be a dreadful housewife. I can't even look after myself. If I had to look after kids, I would look after them. I can look after kids. They just wouldn't eat very yummy food, I guess. I'm not a good cook. Bad things happen when I try to cook. I can cook enough to keep myself alive. I don't enjoy it. And if I had kids, I would look after them. Obviously, they're kids. You do that. But I have so much respect for housewives, so much respect, because not only do you put up with little beings asking you questions all the time, and it's not even questions. Sometimes they just repeat the same thing over and over and over again at varying degrees of loudness. I know this because I have nephews. Not only do you put up with all that, but you also look after, like, mentally and emotionally, you look after them. You look after your husband in that way. You don't turn off. You do it 24/7 and you do all the cooking and cleaning as well. Dude, I have so much respect for you guys. I would be a dreadful housewife and I'm glad I don't have to do it that way. I would want more of I would want to keep my career and I would want more of a partnership with my husband in that way. If I did, no, it's still a partnership if you're a housewife. It's just a different kind of partnership. So I would want a different kind of partnership with my husband than that if I got married again. So yeah, it just wouldn't work as much for me, but only because of the kind of person I am. And yeah, I certainly have a lot of respect for housewives. Esther struggled with writing regularly, but yeah, it does get addictive, doesn't it? Even if you are, like you say, uninspiredly writing something, it comes out useful later. And even if it doesn't come out useful in terms of that you actually use it, it is good practice. It's all good work. And it works into the habit that you have of writing every day, which I know all writers are different. You all have different processes, but that habit of writing every day, I do think that's important for all writers. In general, I don't like to say all writers should do this, but I think that is the one thing that is necessary. While I was working those two jobs and publishing and writing at the same time, it was still so important just to keep writing every day so that I could have something further to publish. So yeah, that sort of job was what I was doing. It was very extremely hard at the time. I'm not going to lie, it was extremely hard for many years, and I'm so grateful to be in the comfortable position I'm in now, where if I only work 20 hours a week in terms of actual writing, that's okay. So I think my smallest work week would probably be about 20 hours a week of actually writing, but you've got to consider things like setting up, actually, I don't do a lot of advertising, but setting up advertisements, making sure everything's going well, rejigging books, updating stuff. All that stuff takes time as well. So I think that'd take an extra 10 hours a week, maybe. But yeah, so I would guess roughly 30 hours a week. But at the end of a book, that blows out of all proportion. Usually at the end of a book, especially because I tend to push things off till the last minute, I can be working up anything up to 9 hours a day just writing, and it's exhausting. Don't do that to yourself. Manage better. I tell myself that every time, and it just never changes. Thanks, guys, for all the hearts and the hugs and everything. I really appreciate it. I am doing much better now. I'm really grateful. I'm so thankful to God. I had my family nearby, and even though I was separated from them due to the type of situation I was in, they were still there and they were still around to help when I needed them. So I'm very thankful for that. God was very good to me, and I had a lot of support that most women in my sort of situation don't have. So I'm hugely grateful for that. Oh, thank you, Jill. I have a lot of people say I'm a baby face, and that's okay. I'll live with that. I'm happy for that. I just wonder if you see the grey hairs and the wrinkles. I have a feeling that it's more to do with, because when I was in Korea, people said it as well. And I was like, are they just saying it to be nice? Because to me, like, especially the laugh lines, I have so many laugh lines, and the white hairs, they are very visible. And I came to the conclusion that maybe it's because I don't wear makeup, or at least I very rarely wear it. And over there, most people do wear makeup. And I think in America, the general trend is that as well. So I keep wondering, is it that I actually do have a youthful face, or is it just I don't wear makeup? Either way, I'm happy. It's okay. Baby face is something I'm happy to live with. Inisar is saying, yeah, Pet does not get the cooking from me. Sometimes my characters are good at doing things that I do not do, like murder and that sort of thing. I definitely don't do murder, guys. Absolutely not. Hashtag truth. But yeah, she definitely doesn't get it from me. Carrie Ann's saying that it's a good habit for her to write 6 days and then take Sundays off for the brain to recharge. That's almost exactly what I do. I'm trying to make myself take 2 days off a week now, Saturday and Sunday. Sundays was always my day off. It's the day I go to church. I read my Bible and pray every day, but Sunday is a sort of more special day set aside for reading that book I wanted to read, whether it's a theology book or just an interesting book or whatever it is, and to be able to give myself the space to relax and to think of God and to consider God in the same way that I would sort of ruminate on my books to grow my plots. So that's always my rest day as it is, but I wanted Saturday as well because it's good to have a full weekend. Susanna Roundtree, who's a close friend of mine and also an author that you guys probably know, her books are also very amazing, said something about it a little while ago, and I realized that I was not giving myself time enough to rest or relax, and having that extra day really makes a difference. I won't be doing that as much today. I'll be working a little bit more today, but yeah, it's a habit I'm trying to make. Yeah, pet making kimchi from scratch is actually something I've done. When I was in Korea, I did a class on kimchi making, so I have in fact done that. It's not terribly hard, especially if you know what you're doing, but I would not like to do it without supervision because, again, when I try to cook stuff, weird stuff happens, guys. Oh, yes, someone saying they would have guessed I was 18 to 20. I will take that. Thank you. I will definitely take that. Yeah, I agree, Esther. Smile lines are a good thing. I love smile lines on people. It makes me sad when I see people with, again, when I was in Korea, I saw it a lot. People with really weirdly stiff faces. from either Botox or the plastic surgery. And not only does it freak me out because I'm face blind and I read expressions rather, I'm not completely face blind, but to a fairly high standard face blind where I can often not recognize my parents if they're driving toward me in a car, and my sister when I'm out in the shopping center and I'm actually looking for her. So to me, that's actually terrifying. I can, yeah, besides the fact that I think they look nice, they help me to be able to recognize people and to know their faces a bit better. So, yeah. Daniel is asking or saying that he was pointed to the live stream by a fellow book lover. Never read any of my books, but wondering which one to recommend to start with. So it depends on what kind of genre you like to read. If you like science fiction that is very timey-wimey and weird and violent in more of a slapstick way, probably start with the Time Traveler's Best Friend series. It's honestly, I really love that series a lot. And I know it's not my most popular one, but I love it a lot. I love the characters. I love the stories. I love the complete incoherence of time travel, that you can somehow make a little bit of coherence out of. So if science fiction is your bag, go for that. If you like urban fantasy with found family themes and an exploration of different kinds of love, not merely romantic love, and lots of bodies and lots of blood and a fair bit of action, go for the City Between series. If you like a slightly more traditional, I guess, high-ish fantasy type thing, then the Shards of the Broken Sword trilogy might suit you well. It has two of my male protagonists in it, so you might care for that. A lot of my male readers come up through either the sci-fi or the Shards of the Broken Sword. And if you like fairy tales retold and turned on their heads, the Two Monarchies series is reasonably good for that. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on what sort of thing you like to read, but that's like a vague rundown of what I do. I also have some fantasy romance books. So that's the Lady series, first person point of view if you're a person who doesn't like that. And yeah, they're romances, I guess, but set in a fantasy world that's very vaguely steampunkish. But yeah, welcome, as the others are saying, welcome. Yeah, the City Between series isn't finished yet, but it will be finished by the end of the year. We're on book 8 now. In fact, I'll be on a panel with QuaranCon again. It'll be my Tuesday, 1:30 a.m. But I think that'll be a lot easier for people in the in Europe in general. I think it might be easier for Spain as well. I'm not very good with time zones. I have to work it all. I'll work it all out and I'll put it on the on all my sort of social media places to go so that everyone can see it. Oh, good. You guys are giving some good recommendations. Thank you. Jill is asking about when we'll see the next episode of Cinderella Must Die. I'm planning on sending it. Always planning, never doing. So my author newsletter was meant to go out last week and also the week before probably. And I put it off and I put it off again because it should have gone out this week as well. I will send it out next week. I will make sure there's an episode of Cinderella Must Die in there, so that you guys can have it, because I'll be finished, hopefully, between decisions, because I'll be finished that. I should be able to concentrate on making sure that that next chapter is ready and out there and ready to go. I know it's no pressure, but also I love that story and I've been wanting to keep going on it. It's just really hard to juggle everything, because I tend to juggle with knives and chainsaws. So, yeah. Oh, and the email also asked how much vacation do I take. I generally have a 2-week break every time I finish publishing a book, generally. Doesn't always work, but I try to do that. It helps to be able to reset my mind to a place where I'm able to think and function again, because usually by the end of a book, everything is chaos and nothing computes and is not particularly healthy to live like that. So I try to take 2 weeks off at the end of each book, and that's basically usually my holiday. Yeah. Writing process. What is it? Does it start with an outline? Did I know the entire storyline of the Between series when I started, before I started writing it? So I don't really have a writing process other than that. I sit down to write. I put my earbuds in or my over-ear earphones over, listen to one of about 5 specific playlists, and start writing. I will sometimes have an idea, especially toward an end of the book, I'll have an idea what I'm going to write. I don't use an outline. Well, very rarely do I use an outline. I have occasionally done it. For 12 Days of Fairy, I did it. For Fire in the Blood, I kind of did it. It's just very unusual for me to do that. I'll have to show you guys my form of outlining one day. It's a huge mess. You won't be able to read it, but it sort of works. But in general, I'm a pantser. I don't plot very much. Having said that, I did have an idea of the main storyline for The City Between when before I started writing it. I knew who the murderer was. I knew who Pet's love interest would eventually be. I knew how the main storyline of the Airling trials and the kingship and all that would work out. So all of that I knew. The rest of it, nope, just worked it out as I went. So that was interesting, which means I'm going slightly mad now trying to make sure I don't inadvertently cause continuity problems. It's a struggle every time. Why did I write a series of 10 books? Seriously, guys, why did I do that? She also asked, do you and the other indie authors you promote all know each other and read each other's drafts? If so, how did you meet? Most of the indie authors I promote, I know, I guess you would say personally. Most of us are friends on Facebook. We met online, which is why it's hard to say specifically that we know and are friends properly, because I've still got that mindset from before internet and before social media of if you don't meet in real life, you're not friends. But it's not true. We are friends. Yeah, so most of the people whose books I share, I'm friends with. I don't necessarily read all of their drafts, nor do they necessarily read all of mine. I do try to read their books before I promote them. However, if it's someone whose books I've already read and I know I love their stuff, or I know that you guys love their stuff and you guys have been recommending to me, I will share them without a worry, because I know that they're great writers. And when I get the time, I get to go and read those, when I'm on a holiday, when I've got a bit of space. So most of us met online. Susanna and I met in person at the Pilgrim Arts Festival, which I'll be going to again this year. So if you live in Tasmania and you've got time, I think is it in June, July? It's in either June, July, or August. I forget which one. If you're in Tassie, I'll be posting about it as the time comes closer. I'll be in person to do some live art. Susanna and I will be writing something together, and there'll also be a talk that I'm doing. But yeah, we met at one of those, and we got along extremely well, and we are now very good friends. And thanks to Susanna, I also have some more friends here in Tasmania. The people who run the Pilgrim Arts Festival, actually, they're really lovely people. Most of us are friends online at the very least, and some of us are friends more. Inessa, who you have seen in the chat, but also who writes the most amazing books. She wrote Thorn and Theft of Sunlight, which is the first part of a duology that's just come out recently. We're friends as well. We have actually read each other's drafts, in that she's so useful, and hopefully I am useful to her as well. We swap drafts every now and then when she's not overloaded or when I'm not overloaded, and help each other out a bit there. And she's always really lovely to talk to. There's not too many people that I can talk to apart from Susanna and Inessa. There's not so many people I can talk to as deeply and openly as I can, because not only do we have a lot of shared values and experiences, but we think in a lot of the same ways. So yeah, I guess it's the comfort version of friendship. You know how you have comfort movies that you go to? Well, it's a kind of friendship where everything's so much easier. You don't have to work so hard. So for me, it's very pleasant. What themes and characterizations would the you of today change about books that the younger you wrote? There are honestly a couple things in my old books that I look at and think, oh, but they were a product of my mind and my situation at the time. I don't think anything is necessarily harmful as such, but a few of the things in there do perpetuate mindsets that I would prefer not to be perpetuated. So I won't get into them all now because I think that would be like an hour-long talk in and of itself, and we're already sitting at roughly an hour, so I'll probably try and rein it in the next 15 minutes or so. So I won't get into that, but suffice it to say that, yes, I think everyone's going to be the same. You read your old stuff and you find things that you think, I know I thought that way then, and it wasn't necessarily wrong of me to write it then, but also, yeah, I would prefer if I had not used that trope, or if I'd been more careful about this thing, or if I'd just thought about the ramifications of using this kind of setup or this kind of relationship or anything like that. So I definitely have things like that. And yeah, they can't be changed, and I don't think they necessarily should be changed. In terms of, it shows my development as a person and as a writer. So it's the same reason why I haven't gone back to Mask and completely rewritten it, because it shows my development as a writer. And I love that book, but it is in a lot of ways substandard in terms of writing, I think, these days. So yeah. And the last question from this person was, do I identify with any of my characters' romantic experiences? Definitely nothing up until 3 years ago, in that sense, because I didn't have any real romantic relationships to go by. The first person I dated was the person I married, and it was a completely unhealthy and messed up relationship from the start. I didn't have the understanding of that back then that I do now. But everything I wrote up until 3 years ago, no, none of that was experiences that I've had, or that was from my experiences, because I didn't have anything to draw from. So definitely not. From 3 years and onward, a few things have been. But it's less things that were said to me or things that were done, rather than things I realized about myself and my preferences, or just what I understood about what I would like as a person, through whether that's through what somebody said or how they approached me, or from my own inclinations for what I wanted to do and what I understood that I liked. So these days, yes, a fair bit of it is, but only in a really tangential way. So yeah, so definitely yes, from 3 years back and now onward, yeah, I think so. But yeah, definitely not everything. Just every now and then I'll put something in that I really, really loved, or that I thought was really delightful. And yeah, and I go with it that way. Maria on Facebook asked, she says she has a question for City Between. If it's not too much of a spoiler, she has a theory about the murder and wants to know if it's a character we've met already. So in the City Between stories, everyone that we've met up until the book I'm writing now, every important character that needs to be there has already been introduced, and the murderer is amongst those. So yes, the murderer is already there. All the important characters, right up until the book I've written, there will be, yeah, after this, yeah, everybody who's important to the plot line in terms of everything has already been introduced. So you won't have to worry about the murderer suddenly springing out and it being a complete shocker, I guess. So, on the live stream panel yesterday, Kirsten asked if, because we were talking about female-led fantasy and gender in fantasy and that sort of thing, and Kirsten asked if that was what I had in mind, the male reader, making them feel more comfortable or welcome, or even just making them see through another mindset. She asked if that's what I had in mind when I didn't identify the pet's gender for several chapters. Not specifically, no. It was kind of not important as such. When we first meet Pet, the main thing about her isn't that she's nearly a woman or, an older teenager just approaching womanhood. It's not the fact that she's a she or anything like that that's important. The importance is that she is stuck in a little room, hiding away, watching trouble approach. And after that, I wanted to accentuate her petness and the way that she was so cut off and so alienated from the rest of the world that when she received even the smallest amount of attention that she could think of as love, that she would be willing to accept a life as a pet just to be able to keep getting that. I wanted to show her complete barrenness and hunger. So it wasn't about whether she was a girl or a boy. It was, I guess, the emptiness inside her that I wanted to make clear. Yeah, I've had a lot of people say that she reads very female, and then I have some people who say she reads very male. Either way, it wasn't the important thing about her character at that stage. So it wasn't. It's not even that it was deliberately done or anything. It was just that's how it turned out. I guess I wasn't being terribly, terribly clever or terribly, terribly deep. It was not important to specify that. Just in the same way as I quite often don't specify what my characters look like until well into the book. They don't gaze into mirrors or reflections quite often, and it's very slowly that you get an idea of what they look like. So, yeah. Yeah, a few people have said male, a few people have said female. It's been very interesting to see people's ideas on that. It's actually been very fun. Kirsten also asked, what would I say about the Hunger Games? It was classified as young adult. Okay, so the Hunger Games to me is probably two genres. Or someone made the point that young adult is not a genre, and that's fair enough, but it works. For all intents and purposes, it works as a genre. So I would say, yes, it is young adult because it's coming of age, but I would also class it in dystopia. And rather than young adult, I would class dystopia first, but I would say young adult dystopia, and that's where the downfall of considering young adult as a genre is that it should be able to be separated into actual genres. But I think it's very readable for people older. Like, I only read it when I was older and I absolutely adored it. It was exactly what I would have loved when I was a young adult. So in that sense, it's definitely young adult because I would have felt a kinship with the characters at that point. Not necessarily because of their the way their feelings are processing, though it would be that too, but I loved the action adventure feel of it. It was just, yeah, I loved it even when I read it now. What else? Someone was asking what action movies are my unicorns. There's so few of them. Pacific Rim was one of them. Bloodshot with Vin Diesel was a surprisingly good. I was just in it for an action flick. I wanted some popcorn action flick, and what I got was actually really well plotted and well crafted and really well done action movie with an actual plot and actual feelings and actual characters. I loved it so much. The two Red movies, they're probably on the side of, I guess, thriller as well as action. They're not hugely action, but they're enough that I would class them as action films, but they are more than action films. So I love that as well. Black Butler, I adore. I'm not sure if it counts toward this, but I just wanted to put it in there. The live action movie, I absolutely love it. It's wonderful. And what was the other one that I told someone? Now I can't remember. Oh, Train to Busan, and the second one, if you can count zombie flicks as action flicks. I do, because it's not, human fighting gangs, but human fighting gangs of zombies. So I think that counts. And yeah, they do something really, really amazing with both of those movies. So I highly recommend both of the Train to Busan movies. They're totally worth it. Even if you don't like subtitles, try them. They're amazing. I love them so much. I think that was all the questions. I think I actually got through all the questions that I found on here. I'll just double check. Yep, seem to have gotten all the ones there. I don't think there's any more on Facebook. So if you guys have any more questions or anything else you wanted to say, pop it down in the comments there. I'll start wrapping it up in a couple of minutes. We've got about maybe 5 more minutes, and then that'll be it. But yeah, I think I've run out of questions now. That's good. I actually didn't know if I would get through all the questions or not, so I'm happy with that. I'll be off to do some writing today at probably a couple of different coffee shops. I don't drink coffee, or at least I used to drink a little bit of coffee. I came into it really late, and there were some I really, really loved, but it turns out it does very bad things to my heart, and also it makes me hyper, which is fine. It also made me happy, which was lovely. But the after effects, like I would be sick for days with my stomach, and it did weird things to my heart. So yeah, I had to stop drinking coffee, and now I drink only tea again, which is fine. I can still sniff the coffee. That's nice. And I do love tea the best, but still. So yeah, I'll probably have a cup of tea or a chai latte if I'm willing to put up with the bloated stomach from the milk, and just try and write for a bit. I've got my new computer now. I can type again. I've just got to set up my iTunes again so that I can actually listen to my playlist through the computer rather than through my phone. But I mean, at least I have my phone. Aha, someone did put another question on Facebook. Jess is asking for her daughter Milani, which decisions does Pet have to choose between? Well, you will just have to read the book and find out. You'll see. You'll find out. But I think there'll be a few of those decisions to make anyway. Yes, this is a nice mug, isn't it? We have a place nearby that sells this sort of thing. Well, not nearby. It's in Hobart. It's 40 minutes away. Yeah, where we can buy all this sort of thing. I've also bought 2 jigsaw puzzles from them, so it's great. Oat milk, yeah, I like oat milk. Oat milk doesn't necessarily like me. I actually haven't found a substitute that I can have all the time. I'd have to switch it up all the time because all of them seem to exacerbate one of 2 different medical conditions if I have them more than once or twice in a row. So I can have coconut milk a while. Generally, I just stick with low-fat milk now and don't have it very often so that I can really enjoy having it and still have the right taste that I like as well as the right texture, and I get around it that way. So I just have much, much less and just have it every now and then, and that works for me. But yeah, oat milk in chai I can imagine would be really, really good. Oh, Anna's asking about when did I missed that question earlier. When did I publish my first book? My first book was the actual book was published in 2015, and it was Mask. So it was, 6 years ago now? Yeah, 6 years ago now. Yeah, so that was Mask. I had published a couple of short stories, but I don't really count those. I didn't really publish them as such. I just sort of put them out there and sort of got used to the process by doing that. But yeah, Mask was the first one, 2015, and all the rest of the time I actually just wrote. until I got to the point where I felt I was comfortable to publish. And then I had about 3 books ready, almost ready to go. So it gave me a really, really good start. I think that helped a lot in ways that other authors have not found so easy when publishing indie. All right, I'm going to wrap it up now because my parents are not home and the fire is on, which means I need to go put some wood on the fire because I don't want it to die. It's actually quite chilly today, and I like the fire anyway. Thanks, you guys, for coming in, and thanks for all the questions. It was really handy to have a set list of questions before I started so that I could interact with you guys' comments a little bit more without worrying that I was going to lose all the questions as well. So yeah, thanks for coming out. I'll try and do something like this every month or every second month. That's why I created the YouTube channel, so that I could do this more easily and reach you guys more easily, because this is definitely more easy than doing it on Facebook was. So yeah, we'll try to keep on going like this. I really like being able to do it like this, and the comments are so much easier to see and they pop up so much easier. So yeah. Right, that'll be about it. I'm going to go do some writing and put some logs on the fire. I hope you guys have a really wonderful day. And if you have time, keep an eye out on my Facebook page, because I'll be posting the information for the panel on writing long series. I'm trying not to go mad by doing so. So anyway, I'm going to end the stream now. You guys have a wonderful day. Love you all. Thanks for tuning in.